Welcome to the derryx Dines podcast. Tonight, let's talk about why West Coast Mexican food rules. Earlier this year, I was able to take a trip to California, Anaheim specifically, where I tried some Mexican food. What I want to say is that the experience there was vastly different than anything I've had here on the East Coast. And I want to talk about it a little bit. And in order to do that, I want to kind of set the scene for exactly what my experience with East Coast Mexican food encompasses, because I won't say that I'm the most well versed with Mexican food, but what I will say is that in terms of breaking down an entire country's food into one specific cuisine, sometimes that's difficult. And I know Mexico has several regionalities that, inform some of the food, and that what Mexican food in America may have actually evolved quite a bit, especially what I see in New York State here. It's similar to Italy. A lot of people say, "Oh, I love Italian food," and they'll cite things that they'll get at like an Italian restaurant in America. That could end up being vastly different from what you find in Italy because of the regionality of the food. There are certain places in Italy where you can go like a kilometer distance and you can experience multiple different types of cuisine. It's a little drastic the way I'm putting it, but just to say that when I say Mexican food, I'm not trying to generalize. It's just from the perspective of a New Yorker who has really only seen Mexican food a certain way until pretty recently. Um, when I say Mexican food, I'm kind of talking about the general Tex-Mex style thing. And I've worked with a number of Mexican people who have made me a number of their specialties, and I've gotten to sample those as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit through the stream here. And this probably won't end up being a long topic of conversation, but I would like to hear from you either in the live chat or in comments or on social media. Kind of what's your experience with Mexican? Where have you had like the best experiences, or anything that you can share? Because I want to create this as a dialogue and talk about certain things about what constitutes a Mexican experience, what constitutes a good one, and why is it so much better on the West Coast? So when I was growing up, I grew up in a place called Middletown, New York. Now, Middletown proper is known for kind of being pretty populated with Mexican people from Mexico. A lot of people are from a part of Mexico called Puebla, and I got to work with a few of those guys. There was always one mainstay Mexican restaurant in Middletown called El Bandido. And this place is one of these kind of legendary places. We didn't go an awful lot when I was a kid, but when I became a teenager, it was a place where, like, even with the guys I worked with, we would, go hang out after work at El Bandito or meet up on a Sunday or something. And it was kind of a mashup of like that American Tex-Mex, but authentic Mexican. And that when you see people working there and people eating there who are obviously of Mexican descent, that's when you kind of know you found the right place. So that kind of spoiled me for, Mexican food. The food there was amazing. I always would get some combination of mole poblano, which is a thick, rich, dark sauce that has nuts and chocolate and chiles and spices and other things like that. I love the enchiladas with that on top of it. That's kind of my go-to there. So when I came upstate even further to Albany, New York for college in 1997, the landscape of Mexican food was very different. The one thing that I got introduced to, which was Mexican-ish, it was more junk food, was a place called Bombers, which actually recently just closed, which is kind of a shock. They were making burritos, so like rice and beans on a tortilla with they had jerk chicken burritos, and it was kind of skirting that line of, kind of Mexican-ish with other influences. But then they started doing other things like vegan burritos and tofu and other stuff, which at the time was, I'm not going to say revolutionary, but it was quite different. And being a college student, getting a burrito for $6, even making the ride from Siena College down to downtown Albany to do that, it was one of those things where it was on a budget. It was a great thing, but it was definitely not the Mexican that I was accustomed to. as college went on further, more and more Mexican places started coming onto my radar. Now, I'm definitely familiar with the fact that if you kind of venture into Albany, there are a lot of places that are Mexican groceries that kind of have prepared foods as well. It's not something I explored much when I was younger. It wasn't as accessible as it ended up being kind of 15 and 20 years later. But I got introduced to a place called Garcia's Restaurant in Albany, and this was like they would have a taco bar, and it's not the kind of tacos that you see now. It's um, red, yellow, purple tacos, and you can go up to the bar and you can put lettuce and cheese, kind of the Taco Bell style tacos. And then they had the expanded, mix of quesadillas, burritos, and things like that. And that type of Mexican restaurant ended up becoming kind of cookie cutter in this area. I would say for probably the better part of almost 2 decades, that was what Mexican food was here in the Albany area. When I started the blog back in 2010, it ended up being a little bit more of hearing some people talk about other types of things. So there was a Mexican grocery store here in Schenectady where, you'd never know it, but they make amazing, authentic style Mexican tacos there. And it wasn't a place where I actually would try to get to go to until I actually moved to this area now, probably a little over 10 years ago. So that was kind of the Mexican in the area. Only recently have we seen kind of an influx here in the capital region of like the taqueria style. And I've done a few reviews of that style place. And I'm actually going to flash on the screen right now my kind of what I've done in terms of reviews, in terms of playlists and stuff. And these first couple of Mexican places here in the Mexican playlist are actually the first place is closed. I think actually, what is that one? Yeah, the first place is closed, but then this Authentic Taqueria is the place I'm talking about. They even make this Tlayuda Mexican pizza thing that was quite amazing. So that's kind of a more recent construct, this kind of place where you can go for tacos and other things like that. And with that said, I always have been hearing about how Mexican food in California is so much better. And you hear about Los Angeles, East LA, Anaheim, and all these places. So we went to a trip earlier this year, and I've been trickling out the California content videos. I got to get back to work on that stuff now that vacation is all caught up. But I made a trip, and one of the things that I know I wanted to do was actually sample a little bit of Mexican food. One of the places I went to more recently, when you look in this playlist here, it's the one with the blue background, and I updated it to say hits different, so that kind of links to this video. But I tried this place called Sabrosada in Anaheim. Probably, I think from Disney you can actually walk to it, and it was a cool place. I'm gonna scrub through the video to kind of show you a couple things. The one thing I was kind of floored with is they have these Carne Asada Fries, and this, I guess, is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And this was a really ridiculous dish. One of the things about California Mexican is that it seems more Americanized than even the Mexican that I'm kind of accustomed to, although a little bit authentic in other ways. So these Carne Asada Fries literally is a bed of French fries. I mean, the picture here doesn't look like much, and I do understand that. When you get food for takeout, it's not, well, first of all, this dish is not a photogenic dish. It's just plops of things on top of French fries. But there's guacamole under there. There's pico de gallo. There's, what do you call that stuff? Sour cream. That's right. Or crema. There's like queso Oaxaca on top of there, little cheese, and little chopped up carne asada. And the cool thing about the experience was I told my wife, she didn't exactly want to partake in the same thing, and it's her vacation too, so I can't just dominate everything with what I want to do on these trips. But we came to a compromise where we went to Raising Cane's the first night that we were in Anaheim, and which I wish I would have actually filmed, not in vertical format, because I think I could have made a good video about that. So I guess that's a story for another day. But the funny thing was, the next night she kind of wanted to go back to that, but we found right in the same plaza as this place, Sabrosada, there was like another fried chicken place where she and Noah got food, and I was able to engorge myself with the food from Sabrosada. So if you do go back and watch that video, you'll see I got the Carne Asada Fries, which was interesting enough because I was kind of debating in my head, it's just me, so why don't I just get the small? The small was like $12 and the large was $14. So in my head, that economy doesn't make sense. Why would I pay $2 less for half? Let me just get everything, and then I'll have leftovers for a couple days. Not thinking that like literally the next morning I was going to film a video eating literally 2 dozen donuts. Kind of that's kind of how it goes when you are trying to be economical but don't have in mind everything, all the data that you're trying to do. But the funny thing about that was, so I got those carne asada fries, and in my head I had to try a California burrito. I just had to know what it was, even though it ended up just being tortilla, carne asada, pico de gallo, I think guacamole, I don't even remember now, honestly, and just a handful of French fries. But just to say I had the experience of having that kind of French fries inside of a burrito with carne asada, and then when I was ordering, I said, "Damn it, I am everything I have here is carne asada. There's really not much to talk about as far as flavors, because what am I going to say about French fries?" So anyway, I ordered a beef tongue taco because I figured that kind of skirted the line of bizarre food for me. And I've had beef tongue before, so it wasn't something where I was gonna, be completely grossed out when I ate it or anything like that. To kind of add a little suspense to the video and some stakes to it, because I really enjoyed it. And the other funny thing about Sabrosada, and that's kind of why I had this pulled up, is that when it comes to this place, let me see if I can find a spot where I have the menu. What they offer is a lot. So there we go. So so this is when I'm talking about West Coast Mexican. There's kind of some tropes that you'll see over and over. You'll see a lot of fish on the menu. So on this side here, there's under tacos, there's fish tacos, there's shrimp tacos. I would like to see my face in this a little bit. Oh, what the heck happened? There it is. All because I need to see my stupid face in these things. So yeah, so there's a lot of fish, there's a lot of shrimp. Another thing is al pastor, carne asada. Here they also had pollo asado. And then when you go down the burritos, and this was something that I didn't actually notice until I was there and until I had ordered, but what the heck is a super burrito? I think at some point in my life, maybe not anytime soon, I'm gonna have to go back and figure out what the super burrito is. But it's just funny to me that when you get to the very bottom of that, the California burrito, I don't think there was any cheese in it. It was kind of on the dry side, just all things considered. Not bad by any means, but also, like, I don't want to say not anything special, because the whole idea of having even this live stream right now is to talk about kind of how special I think West Coast Mexican food is. But, this whole hyping up in my head the California burrito and talking about how in my mind East Coast Mexican was inferior, I think I was under the wrong impression. And I think there's different values. There's kind of a different mindset toward Mexican when you're here on the East Coast versus when you're on the West Coast. It seems a little bit more casual on the West Coast, whereas here it seems more like a background type thing to margaritas or socializing or something like that. It doesn't seem to be I don't want to say taken as seriously because that's not the right thing. Because believe me, in my area here, we have had plenty of places who have tried to take Mexican food a little bit too seriously. An example, there was a place in Hudson and also Schenectady and also New York City called Mexican Radio. It was kind of more of an upscale place. Burrito cost something like $21 like 10 years ago. That type of place where, like, you know, you could tell they were being a little bit cute with things. But like even Bombers, and we have Greg Eckert in the chat, one of my high school buddies, talking about Bombers being great college grub. And yeah, Bombers Burritos kind of was right at the front of the Moe's and Chipotle chains kind of exploding in the Northeast. So that's kind of a good point to note too, because as a college kid, well, more grad school than college, Moe's and Chipotle were my jam. I think the first Chipotle near me opened sometime around 2002 or 2003. So yeah, Bombers was definitely before that because I was going to Bombers in 1998. And somebody I know who had actually helped to open Bombers, which was interesting. So all that to say, there's no reason to kind of think that one style of Mexican is superior or inferior over the other. Also, there's no kind of basis to say that either is truly authentic. Tacos as a construct is probably authentic Mexican. You know, the way they're serving them in California with just onion, you know, your meat, your onion, cilantro, little piece of lime on the side. That's something that now is kind of a thing here in the Albany area. Even so much so that even people outside of Mexican heritage are kind of getting into it. Earlier this year, I highlighted a restaurant called La Capital Tacos, which is one of the more popular places in the area, sheerly on the fact that they have 3 locations. There's one location near me that I did a kind of a review that it was in my backyard because I was able to get takeout. There was another one where I got some behind the scenes footage and I got to enjoy birria tacos in the middle of the winter in a geodesic dome. And then there's another one at a nightclub in Saratoga, which I still haven't checked out. The food is all the same at all 3 places. So that's kind of our local taco chain, right? Where they are in Troy, New York, within that block, there's like 3 other taco places. I think one of them rebranded to something else. But there's Tattoo Tacos, which is kind of your more upscale, chefy, kind of more bar and socializing driven place in downtown Troy on 4th Street. And then I don't know exactly what the other places are. I'm not too familiar with them. But a note is that on the East Coast here, when we drive down to the Outer Banks, there's a stretch between Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina where right off the side of the road, you'll see food trucks, restaurants, and other types of little like hole in the wall, rinky dink businesses that seem to be really popular serving Mexican food. So that kind of street food thing, it has become more and more popular over the years. In this area here also, due to the blow up of like Instagram, you know, where if you have a food truck or a business and you really get out there and hammer on the marketing, you can make a popular place. I just tried earlier this week a restaurant called Tacos Diablo. And this was a really interesting one and a video that I have to put a little bit of work into because I got to talk to the owners, get their story. I tried a whole bunch of stuff. There's so much to talk about with respect to this place. But it's a husband and wife team that they basically started during the pandemic. The guy who designed the menu and is the chef there is a Culinary Institute of America trained chef who worked in fine dining over a whole bunch of years. And he, what the whole story is, he lived in Anaheim. Kind of, when I told him I went to this place Sabrosada and told him it was right near Disney, he's like, I lived minutes away from there, which is also kind of humorous and ironic. I guess they met out that way. And I have footage of them actually telling this story in there, so I'm going to try to incorporate that as well. So this is going to be one of those big banger videos like the Moretz video I just posted a couple weeks ago. But he decided, like, I'm kind of tired of the fine dining thing. I don't know what to do. And she begged him and hammered on him. I miss tacos, do tacos. So they formulated kind of this whole thing of tacos. Um, and it's a pretty simple menu. And what I tried there, I don't want to steal the thunder of that video too much because God knows when it'll be ready. But the thing is, like, as I was eating through everything, and first of all, as they were preparing everything, it reminded me so much of the show The Bear, where, like, you can tell somebody who is in the mindset of fine dining in terms of tickets, timing, throwing things on the pass, and all that stuff. And when I watch him, I can see that kind of same rhythm. Somebody who is service oriented, just trying to make sure that we get everything out. And the cool thing about it, when I got the food and I'm eating through the food, like, for example, I got to try elotes, which is, the grilled Mexican street corn, which is slathered with some type of usually mayo or crema, and then doused with cheese and spices and all this other stuff. I'm eating through it, and, like, in my head, I'm thinking this is not the way he assembled this. There's a little more going on. It's not enough for me to say, hey, this isn't authentic, but it's enough for me to it's like one of those things that make you go, So when I said that to him, I said, here it looks like like you got your little chefy touches that are going on. And when I mentioned that to him, he got taken aback a little bit, because I think it's all intentional. I think when you're a chef, you're thinking a little bit less about how do I stay exactly true to what I'm doing, to how do I innovate a little bit and turn those dials and kind of get into it. That's to say, though, that, what I did try there was, I don't know, maybe a fifth of the menu. And I was already up over $35. And I kind of, at that point, had to cut myself off. But, they're doing Mexican chocolate brownies, and they have Mexican hot chocolate. And you walk in there and you would never in a million years expect the food to be as great as it was, just based on the fact that, if you see me cooking Mexican food, there's a problem. I'm just a Caucasian guy, so you think about it that way. But then when you learn the story about how, hey, this guy's a chef, and this lady's really good with the marketing, it's called Tacos Diablo. You can find them on Instagram. That video is coming soon, and it's going to be a real banger. That's to say, though, that's kind of now the status quo of the Mexican in this area. We still have our Tex-Mex places that are kind of, giant margarita forward, or margarita with the upside down Corona, which I still never tried that. Is that actually good? I couldn't imagine that actually being good. I don't know. That's just me. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for joining us. But with all that, we still have those places, but these little kind of taqueria places where you'd never expect the food to be great because it's so simple, that's becoming more and more status quo here. And I love that, because for me, and this is kind of the ethos of the channel, I think a lot of people make preconceived notions and say, oh, he's a food reviewer, and he's a critic, or all this type of thing. No, I got to squash all that, because that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to start a conversation. Okay. I don't know everything. I'm experiencing things for the first time myself. I was pretty picky when I was a kid. So now that I'm in my 40s, I'm getting out more, and I've been at this for now. So I started YouTube in 2018. Actually, 5 years, and in 2 weeks it'll be exactly 5 years. And then I've been blogging since June of 2010, and I've been covering restaurants for just about that long. So this is an experience that we're all kind of having together, and it's a dialogue. And the fact that we have live people in the chat, who are thrilled to be here, just like Jessica, it goes to show that it's not. This isn't me going to a restaurant and critiquing the food and saying, oh, this needs more salt, or the acid is, of course I have my preferences. And even in the Tacos Diablo video, there's a part where I actually give a little feedback and some notes in terms of what would make something better. I'm kind of fighting with whether I should include that or not, because I don't want I don't want the chef to think I'm kind of the wrong, giving the wrong kind of idea, but that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create a community. We're trying to create a dialogue. We're trying to talk about, hey, I'm saying West Coast Mexican rules, okay? Who's to say East Coast Mexican doesn't rule? Why, when I drive from Maryland down to Virginia, down to North Carolina, do I see all these little hole-in-the-wall Mexican places that are packed with cars? So it's not to say East Coast versus West Coast Mexican is better. It's to say, hey, what's your experience? And for me to kind of share my experience, to put it into context, and that'll be the jumping off point for the conversation. I'm not out here to have an ego and to say that my opinion is right, my opinion matters any more than anybody else's. That's what a newspaper critic is out there for. And even there, I follow the local newspaper critic, and she doesn't seem like that type of person at all. Nor Steve Barnes, who I've worked with in the past through blogging and stuff like that. You know, and also other places, Southern Mexican, like Jessica's saying here, Texas, Tennessee. You know, there's good stuff everywhere. How do we find it? How do we bring attention to it? And how does that inform our future experiences? That's what I'm trying to do here. And Greg makes another point here. You don't want 100% fluff in a video experience. And this is kind of a thing here in the area here, Greg. You know, because I interact with a lot of people, and everybody's a nice person, right? There are people out there who won't give opinions and will say, "Oh, this is amazing. You got to try this." Well, not everything is amazing. Everything can't be amazing. But it's not to say if somebody's doing something, really, really good, I'm not there to tear it down, right? If I outright don't like something, I'll tell you I don't like it. Maybe I won't be so harsh about it in a review. But I've had my reviews where, for example, the Chinese food one, where I was looking forward to this place I went to in college. They used to have these fried wontons that were a certain way, and I went there and I got it, and they changed it. They might have changed ownership, so it was kind of you got to see my live reaction to that. It is what it is. I can't knock them for trying to save money or whatever it was, but it was still a disappointing experience. And I appreciate Jessica. I balance everything perfectly, fair, honest, not smart, not snarky, and informative. When I get snarky, you'll know I'm getting snarky, right? One of the ones, the Dave Portnoy content, you'll hear a little snark come out in there because even he realizes he's not the right person to be doing that stuff. But that said, this wasn't meant to be a long conversation. I just love talking about, Mexican food, including what I had out in California, Anaheim. The carne asada, I probably ate a pound of carne asada throughout that meal, throughout the next couple of days, which was great that we had a refrigerator in that hotel room. But, it was great, just like the Mexican food in my area is great. And the way it's evolving, I can't be asking for any more. In fact, I probably need to slow down with the amount of food that I'm eating from a health purpose. But if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit it with a like. Yeah, I'm sure you'll subscribe if you like the channel. We'll be having more consistent episodes of the podcast now that vacations are over. And if you have any ideas for topics, let me know either in the comments, on social media, something you want to see me talk about. I can always dream up stuff, but I always want to talk about the stuff that you guys want to talk about. And if you're watching in the replay, I'll put the Mexican playlist right here so you can actually catch up on all those videos. Thanks a lot. Have an amazing day, amazing weekend, and we'll see you in the next one.